My name is Veronica Caldwell, and I'm 34 years old. Until a few months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. A loving husband, a cozy home, and a future filled with dreams we had built together, but I was wrong. Horribly, painfully wrong, because behind my back, my husband, Daniel Caldwell, was sleeping with someone I trusted, someone I had welcomed into our lives with open arms.
And the worst part? It wasn't just some random woman, it was my best friend, my so-called sister in spirit, the woman who had been there for my wedding, my birthdays, my hardest days. Her name was Cassandra Blake, a woman I had loved like family. I didn't just find out by accident. No, fate wanted me to see everything with my own eyes, to feel the sting of betrayal sink into my bones. And once I knew the truth, I decided I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't let them destroy me. I would destroy them first, and I did, right in front of the entire family. But before I tell you how I exposed them in the most humiliating way possible, let me take you back to where it all started. Daniel and I had been married for 8 years. We weren't perfect, but we were solid, at least that's what I thought. We had met in college, fallen madly in love, and built our life from the ground up. He was my rock, my partner, my safe place. And Cassandra, she had been my best friend since high school. She was the one who held my hand when my father passed away, the one who helped me pick out my wedding dress, the one who promised me she would always have my back. But looking back now, I should have seen the signs, the stolen glances, the quiet giggles, the way Daniel's phone would suddenly light up at odd hours and he would silence it like it was nothing. Or the way Cassandra had been so interested in my marriage, always asking if Daniel and I were happy. Always offering to help whenever Daniel and I had an argument, like she was some kind of peacekeeper. I should have seen it, but love makes you blind, and I was blind as hell. It was a normal Tuesday evening when my world began to crack. I was cleaning up after dinner when Daniel's phone buzzed on the counter. He was in the shower, and without thinking, I glanced at the screen. It was an unknown number, but the message made my stomach drop.
Can't wait to see you again. Last night was unforgettable. I froze, my hands went cold, my breath hitched. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe it was a wrong number, maybe it was a work thing, maybe...
But then the phone buzzed again. I still feel you all over me. Same time tomorrow? I swear, my body felt like it was on fire. My heart pounded so loudly in my chest I could barely hear my own thoughts. This wasn't a wrong number. This was an affair. My hands were shaking as I unlocked his phone. He always told me his passcode. He had nothing to hide, right? Wrong. Inside, I found months of texts. Months of I miss yous, of I need yous, of last night was amazing.
Months of secret meetings, months of lies. And then I saw it, a picture. It was blurry, taken in a dimly lit room, but I recognized the person instantly. Cassandra,
my best friend. She was sitting on a hotel bed wearing nothing but one of Daniel's shirts, her smile smug, her eyes filled with a kind of satisfaction that made me want to rip her apart. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. My vision blurred with rage and heartbreak, and then a dangerous kind of calm washed over me. I wasn't going to confront him, not yet. Not when he could gaslight me, not when he could turn this around and make me feel like I was crazy. No. I was going to make him pay, and I was going to make Cassandra suffer. For the next 2 weeks, I acted like nothing had changed. I kissed Daniel goodbye in the mornings. I texted Cassandra like normal. I even invited her over for dinner one night, smiling like everything was perfectly fine. She hugged me when she arrived, like she hadn't been sleeping with my husband behind my back. I wanted to claw her face off, but instead I smiled, because I had a plan. And it involved the biggest family gathering of the year. Every year, my family threw a massive reunion. My parents, my brothers and sisters, Daniel's parents, his aunts and uncles, everyone came. It was huge, a tradition that mattered more than anything. And this year, it was happening at my house. So I played the perfect wife, the perfect hostess. I let Daniel think he was getting away with it. I let Cassandra believe I was clueless. But behind closed doors, I was gathering evidence. I was collecting screenshots. I was building my case.
And on the night of the family gathering, when everyone was drinking, laughing, celebrating,
I was going to expose them both, right there,
in front of everyone. The night of the family gathering arrived faster than I expected. The house was buzzing with laughter, clinking glasses, and the scent of roasted meats and fresh-baked bread. Relatives from both sides had filled every corner of the house, making small talk, sharing stories, and reminiscing about old memories. It was the perfect setting, an event so big, so important that no one would forget what was about to happen. I had spent the past 2 weeks preparing everything, not just for the party, but for what I was about to unleash. I had gathered every screenshot, every piece of evidence, and arranged it all in the most foolproof way possible. There would be no way out for Daniel or Cassandra. No gaslighting, no denying, no excuses.
Daniel was in his element, laughing with my brothers, making jokes, acting like the perfect husband. Watching him made my skin crawl. How many times had he kissed me goodnight while sneaking away to be with her? How many times had he come home after being with her and looked me in the eyes as if nothing had happened? I felt sick just thinking about it, and then there she was, Cassandra, dressed in a red, tight-fitted dress that was just a little too much for a family gathering. Her blonde hair was styled to perfection, her smile confident, her eyes scanning the room until she found Daniel. They exchanged a glance. A knowing glance. I felt my hands clench into fists. I wanted to scream, to rip that smug look off her face, but no, I had to wait. Timing was everything. I needed everyone's attention when I made my move. I needed every single person in this room to witness the betrayal, to see them for who they truly were. So I smiled. I played my role. I was the perfect hostess, pouring drinks, making sure everyone was having a good time. Daniel, of course, had no idea what was coming. If he did, he never would have had the audacity to put his hand on my waist, to lean in and whisper in my ear about how amazing everything looked. Liar. I nodded, pretending everything was fine, but my heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear my own thoughts. I checked my phone. 5 minutes. 5 minutes until the final act of my carefully planned revenge would begin. I had sent an anonymous email to our family group chat earlier that day. It was scheduled to send at exactly 8 p.m. Inside that email were screenshots of every text, every picture, every disgusting message they had exchanged. The subject line: Secrets exposed. At exactly 7:59, I walked to the center of the room and held up my glass. A toast, I announced. The room went silent. Everyone turned to me. Daniel, smiling, raised his glass. Cassandra, standing just a few feet away, beamed at me like we were still best friends. The betrayal ran so deep, it almost made me laugh. I swallowed the lump in my throat and looked around the room. I just want to say how grateful I am for all of you, I began, my voice steady, my heart racing. Family means everything to me: loyalty, trust, honesty. These are the things that matter most. A few people nodded, murmuring in agreement. I glanced at my phone. 7:59 and 50 seconds, almost there. I continued, my voice turning softer, more vulnerable. I've learned a lot this year about love, about betrayal, about what it really means to trust someone. Daniel frowned slightly. Sensing something was off, I watched his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed. Cassandra shifted uncomfortably, twirling a strand of her hair. 8 p.m. Ding, ding, ding. One by one, phones started lighting up across the room. Notifications popped up. Confused glances were exchanged. Murmurs started growing louder. I watched as my mother's face turned pale, as my brother's jaw tightened, as Daniel's father's hand shook as he tapped his screen. Then, the first gasp. A horrified, sharp inhale from my aunt. Then another and another. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." I turned to Daniel, whose phone had just buzzed in his pocket. He reached for it, confused, pulling it out. I watched as his face shifted from mild curiosity to confusion, then to pure, unfiltered horror. Cassandra was next. She grabbed her phone, glanced at the screen, and froze. The blood drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. The room erupted, voices shouting, people demanding answers. My mother stood up, her hands trembling, her voice shaking with rage as she turned to Daniel. "Tell me this isn't real," she shouted. "Tell me you didn't do this to my daughter." Daniel looked at me, eyes wild with panic. "Veronica," he stammered, stepping toward me. "This isn't what it looks like, I swear." I let out a sharp laugh. "Oh, really?" I folded my arms, tilting my head. "Because it looks like you've been screwing my best friend for months." Someone gasped. Cassandra opened her mouth, but no sound came out. My father, who had been sitting quietly in shock, finally stood up. His voice was like thunder. "Get out," he said. "Both of you." Oh. Daniel's head snapped toward him. "Wait." "Get out." My father's voice boomed through the house, shaking the very foundation of everything. I crossed my arms, watching as my cheating husband and my so-called best friend stood there, completely humiliated. I could have said more.
I could have screamed, could have called them every name in the book, but I didn't, because I had already won. As Daniel turned to me, his eyes pleading, I just smiled. Enjoy each other, I said, my voice dripping with mock sweetness, because after tonight, you'll have no one else.
I turned away as they scrambled for excuses, as they begged for mercy, as the entire room burned them alive with their judgment.
But this wasn't over yet, not even close, because I had one final move to make. The house was in complete chaos, voices overlapped, accusations flew, and the air was thick with tension. My mother was crying, my father was furious, and my siblings were torn between rage and shock. Some guests had their hands over their mouths, others whispered among themselves, shaking their heads in disbelief. But the loudest silence of all came from Daniel and Cassandra.
They stood there, frozen like deer caught in headlights, their faces drained of all color. The weight of their disgrace pressed down on them, suffocating, inescapable. I could see the gears in Daniel's head turning, scrambling for a way out. He was a master manipulator, always knowing the right thing to say to worm his way back into favor. But not this time. He took a cautious step toward me, his voice soft, measured, as if talking to a cornered animal. "Veronica, please. I know this looks bad, but I swear it's not what you think."
I laughed. A loud, bitter, mocking laugh that cut through the noise like a knife. "Oh, Daniel," I said, shaking my head, "you seriously have the audacity to stand here after all those texts, all those pictures, and still tell me it's not what I think?"
His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. He was out of lies, out of excuses, and then Cassandra found her voice. "Veronica, please, you have to believe me. It was a mistake. It just happened." I whirled on her so fast she flinched. "It just happened?" My voice was ice, my rage a controlled storm. "You're telling me you accidentally texted my husband for months, accidentally booked hotel rooms, accidentally wore his clothes?" She clutched at her dress, her hands shaking. "I never meant to hurt you." I took a step closer, my voice lowering to a near whisper. "You didn't just hurt me, you betrayed me. You sat in my house, ate at my table, laughed with me, held my hand through heartbreaks. Oh, and all the while you were stabbing me in the back." Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't done. I turned back to Daniel. "And you," I hissed, venom dripping from every word. "You told me you loved me. You swore vows in front of God, our families, everyone we love, and for what? For this? For some meaningless affair with someone who was supposed to be like a sister to me?"
He shook his head rapidly, desperate. "It wasn't meaningless, Veronica. I made a mistake, but you have to believe me, I still love you. That did it." The sheer audacity of those words snapped something inside me.
I reached behind me, grabbed the glass of red wine from the table, and hurled it straight at his chest. The liquid splashed all over his crisp white shirt, staining it a deep blood-like crimson. Gasps erupted around the room, but no one tried to stop me. They all knew he deserved every bit of it. Daniel staggered back, his hands flying to his soaked shirt. Cassandra let out a horrified shriek, covering her mouth in shock. But I wasn't finished. "I hope it was worth it," I said, my voice razor sharp. "Because as of this moment, you are both nothing to me." Daniel's hands curled into fists. His humiliation was turning into anger. Good. Let him feel it, let him drown in it.
"Fine," he spat, straightening up. "You want me gone? I'll leave, but don't come crying to me later when you realize you'll never find someone who loves you the way I do." A slow, wicked smile spread across my lips. "Oh, sweetheart," I purred, tilting my head. "I think you should check your bank account before you talk about love."
His entire face dropped. I turned on my heel and walked to the counter where I had left my laptop. With one swift motion, I turned the screen toward him, revealing the banking app that was still logged into his account. His now empty account. I had drained every single penny from our joint savings and transferred it to my personal account hours ago. Daniel lunged forward, his face twisted in fury. "What the hell did you do?" I took a slow sip of my wine. "Oh, relax. It's not stealing if the money was already mine. After all, you signed a prenup, remember?" His jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack. Cassandra took a step back, realizing for the first time that she wasn't walking away from this affair into some fairy tale ending. She was stepping into a disaster. I turned to her, my expression amused. "Oh, don't look so shocked, Cassandra. Did you really think he was going to leave me for you? that you were going to run off into the sunset, happily ever after. I let out a dark chuckle. Men like Daniel don't love, they just take. And you were just the next available option. Cassandra's lip trembled. She was beginning to realize the full weight of what she had done. Daniel was fuming, his chest rising and falling rapidly. "You'll regret this, Veronica," he spat. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." I shrugged, stepping closer until I was inches from his face. "No, Daniel. The biggest mistake of my life was trusting you, and now I'm free." I grabbed my wine glass and took another sip, enjoying the absolute destruction I had left in my wake. I turned toward my family, who had watched the entire thing unfold in stunned silence. "I think the party's over," I said with a smirk. "Would someone kindly show these two out?" My brother, standing at the edge of the room, cracked his knuckles. Gladly. Daniel and Cassandra were dragged out, both shouting, both trying to salvage whatever dignity they had left, but it was over. I had won. But there was one last move left to play. Because I wasn't done with them yet. The front door slammed shut behind them, and for the first time that night, silence filled the house. My entire family stood there, still reeling from what they had just witnessed. Some looked at me with shock, others with admiration, but no one said a word. I took a slow, deep breath, feeling a weight lift off my chest. It was over. Daniel and Cassandra were gone, humiliated, exposed, and stripped of everything they had taken for granted. But as I placed my wine glass down on the counter, I realized something. I wasn't done. Not yet. This wasn't just about making them pay for what they did. This was about ensuring they could never recover. My mother stepped forward, placing a trembling hand on my arm. "Veronica, are you okay?" I turned to her and smiled, a real smile. "I'm perfect." And I meant it. But now it was time for the final act. I excused myself, telling everyone to stay and enjoy the food. They deserved it after witnessing that level of drama, but I had business to take care of. I walked to my bedroom, shut the door behind me, and grabbed my laptop. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I pulled up my carefully prepared Plan B. Because while Daniel had been busy sneaking around with Cassandra, I had been busy gathering dirt on both of them. Let's start with Daniel. He wasn't just a cheating husband, he was a lying, embezzling fraud. Over the past year, he had been moving money from our joint business account into a secret account under his name. I had suspected something was off when I noticed strange withdrawals labeled as business expenses, but with no actual receipts to back them up. So I hired a forensic accountant. And what I found, it was juicy. Daniel had stolen over $50,000 from the business we had built together, money that was supposed to go toward investments, expansion, and employee salaries. Instead, he had used it for hotels, expensive gifts, and a lifestyle he never could have afforded on his salary alone. And Cassandra, she had her own dirty little secrets. Not only was she cheating with my husband, but she had been sleeping with 2 other married men in our friend circle. One of them was her own boss, and guess what? I had proof of it all. Screenshots, emails, pictures, everything. And tonight, I was going to set fire to their lives just like they had tried to burn mine. First, I opened my email and attached all of Daniel's financial records, neatly compiled into an easy-to-read PDF. I sent it straight to our company's legal team, CCing the board members. Within hours, an official audit would begin and Daniel would be facing fraud charges. Then, I pulled up a new message and carefully drafted an email to Cassandra's employer. I attached every screenshot of her inappropriate messages with her boss, every piece of proof of their unethical meetings. Then, for good measure, I sent the same email to his wife. By the time morning came, Cassandra wouldn't just be a homewrecker, she would be unemployed and publicly disgraced. But I wasn't done yet. There was one last thing I needed to do. I logged onto Facebook, took a deep breath, and made a post. A simple one. A picture of Daniel and Cassandra together, the one I had found in his phone, her wearing his shirt in that disgusting hotel room. The caption? "When your best friend and your husband betray you, make sure they don't get away with it. Enjoy the show." And then I hit post. Instantly, notifications flooded in. Likes, comments, shares. It was spreading like wildfire. Friends, family, colleagues, everyone saw it. Within minutes, my inbox was exploding. People were texting me, calling me, outraged. Some were offering support, others were ready to tear them apart. And then, the grand finale, Daniel called. I let it ring twice before answering, keeping my voice calm, collected, deadly. Veronica, what the F asterisk did you do? I
smirked, stretching out on my bed like a queen watching her kingdom burn. Oh, Daniel, I purred. I did what you deserved. His breathing was ragged, panicked. My job, my reputation, you've ruined me. I twirled a lock of my hair around my finger. Funny, isn't it? How actions have consequences.
He cursed under his breath. You don't get it, Veronica. I'll fix this. I'll fix everything. You and I burst out laughing, actual laughter. Oh, honey, there is no you and I. Cassandra's voice suddenly came through the speaker. Veronica, please, you don't have to do this. We're sorry. I rolled my eyes. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught.
Daniel groaned in frustration. You've made your point, okay? Just take the post down, please. I pretended to consider it. How about no? Cassandra started sobbing. Daniel's breathing grew heavier. I gave them a moment to let it all sink in before I delivered my final words.
Daniel, you stole from me. You cheated on me. You lied to me. And Cassandra, you pretended to be my friend while stabbing me in the back. You two deserve each other. I took a deep breath, letting them stew in their misery. Then, in the calmest, sweetest voice possible, I said, have a nice life. And then I hung up. I stared at my phone for a second, waiting for another call. Nothing, just the silence of victory. I set my phone down and walked back to the living room where my family was still gathered. The energy had shifted, no more sadness, no more anger, just quiet admiration. My brother clinked his glass with a smirk. To Veronica, he said, for showing us how to serve revenge the right way. Everyone laughed. I raised my glass, the taste of wine sweeter than ever.
Because for the first time in years, I felt free. But the best part, their nightmare had only just begun. The morning after the most legendary takedown in family history, I woke up feeling lighter than ever. The weight of betrayal had been lifted, and in its place was a new kind of power. I stretched in bed, savoring the silence, no more waking up next to a lying, cheating fraud. No more fake smiles at a friend who had been plotting behind my back. The air felt different, fresher, like I had purged every bit of filth from my life. Then my phone buzzed.
I smirked. Showtime, first, the company lawyer. Daniel's embezzlement had set off a full-blown investigation. His fraudulent transactions, the money he had siphoned from our business, it was all being exposed. The board had called an emergency meeting and legal action was imminent. Within days, Daniel would be out of a job, facing potential charges. I sipped my morning coffee as I read the lawyer's message. Your ex-husband is officially screwed.
Beautiful.
Next, Cassandra's downfall. The email I had sent to her employer, it had been read, forwarded, and acted upon. Cassandra's boss was immediately suspended for improper conduct, and she was fired on the spot. Turns out, when your affair with your married boss is documented in explicit detail, the company doesn't exactly want to keep you around. I checked my social media, expecting to see more chaos, and I wasn't disappointed. The Facebook post had gone viral. Hundreds of comments, hundreds. Some were from mutual friends disgusted at what Daniel and Cassandra had done. Others were from random people who didn't even know us but loved the drama, and then I saw the best part. A comment from Cassandra's boyfriend. Wait, you mean she was cheating on me too? Wow, guess she has a type. Thank you for exposing this trash. You just saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. I nearly choked on my coffee. Cassandra was engaged, and I had just ended her relationship too. It was too perfect. I leaned back in my chair, letting it all sink in. Daniel had lost his wife, his money, his reputation, and now his career. Cassandra had lost her best friend, her job, her fiancé, and her dignity. And me? I had lost nothing. I had gained everything. The only thing left to do was move on in style, so I did exactly that. And then, over the next few weeks, I made some changes. Big ones. I redecorated the house, throwing out everything that reminded me of Daniel. I took myself on a luxury vacation, paid for with my own money, thank you very much. I started living for myself, embracing the freedom I never realized I had been missing. And the best part, I thrived. Meanwhile, Daniel was drowning. Word spread fast about his fraud case. Not only was he facing charges, but every company in our industry blacklisted him. Cassandra, she had disappeared from social media. Turns out, when you get publicly dragged and humiliated, you tend to lay low. Occasionally, I would get updates from mutual friends. The last I heard, Daniel had moved into a dingy apartment, jobless and bitter. Cassandra was working at some low-paying retail job, struggling to rebuild what was left of her life. I could have gloated, could have sent them messages rubbing salt in the wounds, but I didn't, because I had already won. One night, weeks later, I was sitting at a bar with some friends, laughing, sipping my cocktail when my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "I miss you, can we talk?" I stared at it for a long moment, then laughed. Laughed so hard my stomach hurt.
Then I deleted the message, blocked his number, and as I took another sip of my drink, I realized something. I wasn't just free,
I was finally truly happy. Because the best revenge is moving on without looking back,